Morning! It's our first full day in Seward, and we just arrived at the Exit Glacier Nature Center. We're going to do a short hike here. It's about an hour round trip.
That's what they say.
We'll find out. We had a little later start to the morning than originally anticipated because there was some excitement
and an adventure back at home, actually.
Yeah, that we had to deal with, and you know. Everything is okay, it's all fine, but we didn't want to leave the hotel because around here there's no service a lot of places. Like even right now here we are at the trail and I have no service. It's not even roaming. When we were yesterday there were some parts where it was like roaming. No, there's just straight up nothing. So we wanted to make sure that we were on hand to deal with anything until it was all resolved. But now we are at the trailhead and we're gonna go take a trail, and it was supposed to be kind of an overcast day and it's sunny again.
There is sun.
There's a lot more clouds than we had in Anchorage, but like I don't even care.
Not too bad.
It's nothing. So we'll take it. So here we are. It was interesting on the way in, there were, Robert pointed out, there were signs that showed where the glacier was different years, and so you can see it kind of receding, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. And sad.
Say it again?
And sad.
Oh. But isn't that natural for glaciers to?
Not this much.
Oh.
Global
Awkward.
warming. Chelsea's a global warming denier. She thinks it's all
It is blatantly false.
natural cycles in the sun or whatever.
Okay, but like it was, you know, this was all late 1800s. I wasn't thinking, you know, if you saw those and it was like 2010 to 2011, then okay, yes, yes, but this was like 1800, 1820, you know. I don't think of global warming back then, so that's why. You take pictures, and there you go, 6 years difference, exact same spot these two pictures were taken, how much it has receded. So it's definitely receding a lot faster now, I think. But we were wondering some of the really old number marks, how they got those years. But yeah, so they say take pictures here for the visual record. All right, so place it right there. There's Robert. But we're on the move. So at the beginning of our hike, I'll share this story and we'll see, weigh in the comments below which one you are. So I always try and bring my ID with me when I go hiking so that if anything happens to me, my body can be identified, which is a bit morbid, but like practical, smart. Robert is not of that vein.
I mean, I still bring my ID with me because I bring my ID with me everywhere. I don't actively think, oh, maybe I should bring it so that if I die, my body can be identified.
Well, it's not even just death, just, you know, anything could happen. But I also bring my ID everywhere, but it's for that reason. I think about it only in terms of, oh, I should have ID on me in case something happens and someone needs to know who I am. And I'm unable to provide that information myself. So there you have it. Which one are you? Oh, this is what I was going to say, is there was a little sign at the nature center where you could write your wildlife sightings. And people have been seeing black bears. Someone thinks they saw a grizzly, moose, different things like that. And we didn't pay super close attention to what trails they saw them on, so not sure if we'll see anything today, but we'll keep our eyes out and we'll, you know, keep talking to each other, make noise so that if a bear doesn't want to come by, it won't. 1961. So 60 years later, and it's nowhere in sight. Crazy. So we're not sure how deep into the hike we are.
No more than halfway.
But beautiful views of the surrounding areas already. You can hear the water rushing from all the snow melt. Alright, so there's the sign for 2005. Where do we have to go? All the way up there. See it. Glaciers. right, so we found a sign talking about how the movement and kind of how they date it, and we were both right. They do a little bit by moraines, which Robert, you said are rocks that get pushed along by the glacier, and vegetation, and also photographs, and then historical aerial photographs. And today satellite images are used to mark that. So very interesting. The other thing we noticed, so we were laughing because we put our we took all our layers off, and then we got close to the glacier and it got real windy and we were cold again. And one of the signs was saying that it gets cold and windy from the glacier. The glacier is, what was it, Robert? It pushes the cold air?
Yeah, so the air gets cooled by being near the glacier, and then it sinks, and then it causes like cold winds.
So very interesting. And then I made the comment that water is so powerful, and Robert asked if I was high. But it is. I mean, just looking at the like striations on the rock and everything and all that it's done, it's so, I don't know, it's really cool, it's interesting, and it's absolutely beautiful up here. So, you know, today nothing's going according to plan, which is okay. It's not a bad thing. It's just kind of funny. It's all congregated on the same day. So we get back to the hotel. We're about to go to lunch, and we realize the place we had picked up for lunch doesn't open for lunch. They open at 2 p.m. And that was going to be too late for us because we had time to get tickets. So we went somewhere else for lunch. No big deal. While we're at lunch, Robert was just looking up information about our afternoon's hike, and he realized that the road that we would need to take to get to the hike is closed. All right, great. Well, picked out a new hike, not a big deal. So we went instead, well, not instead, what we were planning to do after lunch. Well, for lunch, we just went to a different local place, and I got burgers, Robert got fish and chips. And then we went to the Alaska SeaLife Center, which was really cool. They talked about like fishing in Alaska and conservation of Alaska fishes. They talked a little bit about that earthquake again and how it disturbed wildlife and some of the like fishing pattern, like the fish salmon patterns and things like that. And the Valdez oil spill in, what was it, 89? And how they're still continuing to see like the remains of oil and how that is continuing to have an effect. But that there was no baseline, so they don't really know how things were, they don't have records or data necessarily of how things were before the oil spill. And so one of the positive effects is that they have a lot more information now, so if something were to happen again, or if something does happen again, they know, they can compare a before and after in a way that they couldn't with the oil spill. They only have these afters, which I think is interesting. And then they also had some animals. So we saw seals and sea lions, stellar sea lions, and lots of birds. And they actually fed the sea lions while we were there. So we got to see them. They called it a training session. Yeah. So they went over different like tricks, and they were saying, you know, it's just meant to keep the sea lions mentally and physically agile.
So these guys are basically here for husbandry purposes only.
Do you feed the food? You're so lucky to feed them.
So it was a male, and he was at 2,000 pounds.
So big.
It's so big. But he was surprisingly nimble for how big he was. And he was doing like flippers and swimming all over and kind of like plopping down and putting his head in the water or sticking his tongue out, all different things. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So I'm glad we got to see that because it was just a different perspective. Oh, and there were octopus and salmon and lots of other different little smaller fish as well. And then there was an observation deck where you could see out to the bay, which was beautiful. And then we saw the landslide that is covering the road. So that is why we can't get to that trail, which makes a lot more sense now. But they were also saying there was a part where you could like feel some like anemone, or not anemone, starfish and sea urchin. Anemone. But the woman there was saying that they draw their water from outside. She's like, so it's a little murky because of the land they're, dumping in the water. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then we went on the observation desk. I was like, oh, that's what you're talking about. And Robert's like, oh, that's why the road is closed. So it's a real like, okay moment
and
for
a big
us.
landslide.
Yeah, real big, and hopefully no one was hurt. So yeah, so instead we're gonna go try a different hike out.
We'll try.
All right, see you on the trails. All right, we made it. We found a trail. It's not the second trail that we were gonna do. So we showed up at the second hike we had picked out, and it was closed.
I don't know if it was closed.
There were
unclear.
We were trying to, afterwards we kept looking for a new hike, and there was someone who hiked it today who said there are all these signs at the bottom, warning signs, but I think it was for something else. Like the trail was totally fine. So it's possible that it would have been fine for us to go on it, but better to heed some of those warnings, I think. So we didn't, but we found this really short, easy hike. We didn't even change into our hiking boots for this one. And it just kind of goes around this local park and these two lakes. And neither lake they're both more like ponds in my book, but we're discussing what makes a body of water a lake. I don't know. But we did see a real...
Sound off below.
Yeah.
In the comments.
What do you think? Or maybe you know the answer. But there was a big pile of scat, and we saw a bunch of scat on this morning's hike that were all these like pellets that seemed like maybe like it looked almost like a mountain goat or a deer type thing, but the pellets themselves were bigger and the pile was bigger, so maybe more like a moose or an elk or something. But we don't know. We're not experts at identifying scat. The scat we saw just now was big ploppy pile, and so we're like, oh, maybe this is from a bear or something like that. But we haven't seen any, and and this is I don't know. It's on the one hand the type of trail you would expect to see a bear on because it's very wooded, and on the other hand it's very close to town. So there's the part of me that's like, oh, you wouldn't, but you forget that around here, that's not really a deterrent. Bears go in people's backyards all the time, no problem. So anyway, still no in the wild bear sightings, and I guess ideally we would keep it that way, or at least, be safe about it. So I'm sure you're all tired of hearing us mention being vigilant about bears, but that's what happens when you're hiking in Alaska.